Every animal sleeps. That much is established. What isn't established is why. After decades of sleep research, neuroscientists still don't have a complete explanation for why sleep is biologically necessary, why the brain and body require a period of reduced consciousness to function. The leading theories involve memory consolidation, cellular repair, toxin clearance from the brain, and immune system maintenance. None of them fully explains the phenomenon on their own. Now add this. Some animals sleep with half their brain at a time. Some sleep while flying. Some go years without sleeping and appear to suffer no consequence. Some sleep in ways that, by the clinical definition of sleep, they technically shouldn't be capable of. Every assumption about what sleep requires and what it does gets tested somewhere on this list. And in most cases, the animal passes the test in a way that leaves the researchers more confused than before they started. The bottlenose dolphin. The bottlenose dolphin cannot be fully unconscious. It would drown. Cetaceans are conscious breathers. Unlike humans, whose breathing continues automatically during sleep, dolphins must actively choose to surface and breathe. An unconscious dolphin doesn't breathe. A dolphin that doesn't breathe drowns. The solution dolphins evolved. Unihemispheric sleep. One hemisphere of the brain enters a sleep state, producing slow-wave activity consistent with deep sleep, while the other hemisphere remains fully awake, maintaining enough consciousness to surface, breathe, watch for predators, and keep swimming. After a period, the hemispheres switch. The sleeping eye closes, the awake eye stays open. A dolphin resting at the surface with one eye open and one eye closed is not doing something charming. It is performing a neurological feat that human brains cannot replicate, putting half of itself to sleep while the other half runs the body. EEG studies on dolphins in sleep states show clear, slow-wave activity in the resting hemisphere, while the active hemisphere shows waking patterns, the two halves of the same brain, operating in different states simultaneously. Researchers studying the mechanism can see it on the instruments. They still don't fully understand how the coordination works. The alpine swift. In 2013, researchers tracking alpine swifts with geolocators confirmed something that had been suspected but never verified. The birds can remain airborne for up to 200 consecutive days without landing. They feed in flight, catching insects in the air. They drink in flight, skimming water surfaces. They mate in flight. And, apparently, they sleep in flight. The evidence for in-flight sleep is indirect but compelling. The birds show no signs of sleep deprivation across their 200-day airborne periods, despite never being on a surface where conventional sleep could occur. Unihemispheric sleep, the same mechanism dolphins use, is the leading hypothesis. The bird maintains enough awareness in one hemisphere to navigate and avoid obstacles, while the other hemisphere rests. Direct EEG confirmation of in-flight sleep in alpine swifts has not been achieved because attaching EEG equipment to a bird in sustained flight is not a problem anyone has solved yet. The researchers know the birds aren't landing. They know the birds show no sleep deprivation. They strongly suspect the birds are sleeping in the air. They can't yet confirm it in the way that would satisfy a journal reviewer. The alpine swift may be sleeping right now, several hundred feet up, flying over Europe, in a state that researchers can infer but not yet observe. The sperm whale. In 2008, researchers in the Pacific Ocean encountered something that had never been documented before. A group of sperm whales floating vertically at the surface, completely motionless, in a tight cluster, with their heads pointing upward. The whales were not dead, they were not sick, they were asleep. Sperm whales sleep in short bursts. Approximately 10 to 15 minutes in this vertical, bobbing position with their blowholes above the surface. The behavior was so unexpected that the research team initially didn't understand what they were seeing. They drifted their boat into the cluster before realizing the whales were in a sleep state. One whale was gently nudged by the boat and woke slowly, and the group began moving. The brain of the sperm whale is the largest of any animal that has ever lived, approximately 8 kilograms. How that brain enters and exits sleep, what it does during sleep, and why sperm whales appear to need relatively little of it, approximately 7% of their time, compared to the 30% humans require, is not well understood. What is understood? Sperm whales sleep vertically in groups at the surface for about 12 minutes at a time. A researcher who didn't know this drifted a boat directly into a sleeping pod and discovered it in the most direct way possible. The great frigate bird. The alpine swift raises the possibility of in-flight sleep. The great frigate bird confirmed it. In 2016, researchers from the Max Planck Institute attached EEG loggers to great frigate birds on the Galapagos Islands and tracked them during their extended oceanic foraging flights, periods of up to 10 days continuously airborne. The EEG data showed it directly. The birds experience unihemispheric slow-wave sleep while flying, with one hemisphere showing sleep activity and the other showing waking patterns. They also occasionally experience brief periods of simultaneous sleep in both hemispheres. Full bihemispheric sleep for an average of 12 seconds at a time, typically during soaring when active navigation is less critical. Total sleep during flight averaged approximately 42 minutes per day, far less than the frigate birds sleep on land, where they average 12 hours. They appear to accumulate a sleep debt during the flights and recover it when they return to land. The EEG data confirmed the sleep was happening. The question of what 42 minutes of fragmented in-flight sleep actually accomplishes, whether it's fully restorative, whether the birds experience consequences analogous to human sleep deprivation, is still open. The instruments confirmed the fact. The meaning of the fact is still being worked out. The walrus. The walrus inflates specific throat air sacs that function as flotation devices when sleeping in water, allowing it to float with its head above the surface without active swimming, without drowning while unconscious. It is an animal that evolved a built-in sleeping aid for the specific problem of sleeping in the ocean. It can also sleep anywhere, on land, in water, vertical, horizontal, partially submerged, in any configuration the environment requires, and it can stay awake for up to 84 consecutive hours during migration, then sleep for up to 84 consecutive hours to recover. The ability to defer sleep for extended periods and then discharge it in concentrated sessions is called sleep rebound and is documented in humans in limited ways. The walrus takes it to an extreme that current sleep biology hasn't fully explained. How the walrus brain manages 84 hours of accumulated sleep debt and then discharges it without apparent cognitive impairment is not understood. What is understood? It begins by deploying inflatable throat pouches to float safely and ends 84 hours later having apparently resolved everything that needed resolving. The sleeping aid, the extreme flexibility, and the 84-hour recovery are all the same animal managing the same problem through completely different mechanisms depending on what the situation requires. The bullfrog. The African bullfrog appears not to sleep at all, at least not in any way that researchers have been able to detect. Sleep, as defined in neuroscience, requires a measurable change in brain activity, a shift from the waking EEG pattern to slow wave or REM activity. Every studied vertebrate shows this pattern. The African bullfrog doesn't seem to. Multiple studies have attempted to detect sleep states in bullfrogs by monitoring brain activity across extended periods. The results have been consistently inconclusive. The frogs show periods of reduced activity and responsiveness, but the EEG signature doesn't match the established sleep patterns found in other vertebrates. The working hypothesis is that bullfrogs may have a more primitive form of sleep, a precursor to the elaborate sleep architecture of mammals and birds that operates through different neural mechanisms. If true, it would place bullfrogs at an evolutionary midpoint between animals with no identifiable sleep and those with the complex multi-stage sleep humans experience. The bullfrog is the case that most directly challenges whether sleep is one thing or a family of loosely related processes that evolved independently in different lineages. It rests. It recovers. It does so without producing the neural signature that defines sleep everywhere else. What it's doing instead remains genuinely undetermined. The sea otter? Sea otters sleep floating on their backs on the water surface, sometimes holding hands with nearby otters so they don't drift apart during sleep. This is one of the most shared animal images in internet history. The reason they do it is partly social bonding, and partly that the alternative is drifting into open water alone while unconscious and dying. Both things are true simultaneously. The photograph doesn't tell you the second one. Sea otters have the highest metabolic rate of any marine mammal relative to their size, requiring enormous caloric intake to maintain body temperature in cold Pacific water. Every hour spent sleeping on the surface is an hour not spent foraging. The energetic cost of sleep is directly measurable and directly significant for an animal operating at this metabolic level. The hand-holding behavior called rafting prevents individuals from drifting into hazardous areas during sleep and maintains social bonds that correlate with survival outcomes. Otters without raft partners show higher rates of being separated from food-rich areas during sleep periods. An otter drifting alone, asleep, unconscious, into open Pacific water is an otter that may not wake up in the right place. The hand-holding is the solution. The cuteness and the survival mechanism are the same behavior. The white-crowned sparrow. During migration season, white-crowned sparrows stay awake for up to 7 days continuously. They navigate, forage, and fly through periods that would produce severe cognitive impairment in humans or other mammals. Researchers can induce the migratory state in captive birds by mimicking the day-length changes that trigger migration and then measure cognitive performance across the sleep-deprived period. The finding? White-crowned sparrows show no measurable cognitive decline across the 7-day period. Memory tests, problem-solving tests, and reaction time tests show performance equivalent to fully rested individuals. They are, by the instruments used to measure it, not accumulating a functional sleep debt even while going without sleep for a week. The mechanism appears to involve local sleep brief micro-sleep events in specific brain regions that don't produce behavioral unconsciousness but provide restorative function to the neurons that need it most. The bird is essentially napping one brain region at a time, rapidly cycling through them, while maintaining overall wakefulness and function. If this mechanism could be understood and replicated, the applications for human sleep medicine would be significant for surgeons, shift workers, military personnel, anyone who needs extended wakefulness without cognitive cost. The sparrow is doing something medicine would like to know how to do in a bird that weighs 30 grams on a 7-day migration over open ocean. The elephant. African elephants, tracked by researchers with activity monitors in Botswana, were found to sleep an average of 2 hours per night. 2 hours. For an animal that can live 70 years, weighs up to 6,000 kilograms, and has the largest brain of any land mammal. For comparison, humans require 7 to 9 hours. Horses require 3 to 4. The elephant sleeps less than almost any other large mammal studied, and field observations suggest it may go without sleep entirely for multiple consecutive days during periods of perceived danger or long migration. Every few days, the elephants in the Botswana study entered a deeper sleep phase lying down rather than resting standing for approximately an hour. Researchers believe this lying down phase corresponds to REM sleep, which requires full muscle relaxation, and that the standing rest corresponds to slow wave sleep. The implication? Elephants may be chronically sleep deprived by human standards and functioning normally, or the sleep requirement for a brain of that size is genuinely different from what mammalian scaling models predict. Or elephants evolved in an environment with enough predation pressure that 2 hours became sufficient because more than 2 hours was fatal and the brain adapted to work. Nobody has fully established which explanation is correct. The elephant is awake right now, probably, and doing fine. The dolphin, mother, and calf. For the first month after birth, dolphin calves don't sleep. They can't. Newborn calves must surface to breathe continuously, must stay in motion to maintain position near their mothers, and haven't yet developed the unihemispheric sleep mechanism that adult dolphins use. The mother doesn't sleep either. For approximately a month documented in bottlenose dolphins, orca, and other cetacean species, the mother remains continuously awake and in motion alongside the calf. She shows no signs of impairment, no signs of accumulated sleep debt, no behavioral changes consistent with the severe cognitive deterioration that humans experience after even 3 or 4 days without sleep. The mechanism is unknown. The leading hypothesis is that the demands of new motherhood trigger neurochemical changes that suppress sleep requirement temporarily, similar to the walrus's migration state, but sustained for weeks. Whether the mothers accumulate a sleep debt they recover later, or whether the neurochemical state genuinely eliminates the sleep requirement for that period, has not been established. A mother dolphin, awake for a month continuously, swimming alongside a calf that cannot yet sleep with no measurable impairment. It is one of the more extraordinary parenting-related biological facts in the animal kingdom, and it happens underwater, invisibly, in animals whose sleep we only partially understand even under controlled conditions. The cockroach. The cockroach has a sleep cycle. This surprises most people because most people assume cockroaches have no inner life worth considering. In 2004, researchers at the University of Konstanz documented that cockroaches have distinct periods of immobility with reduced responsiveness to stimuli, alternating with active periods in a roughly 24-hour cycle driven by circadian rhythm. Cockroaches deprived of their rest periods show subsequent rebound. Extended rest that compensates for the deprivation, the same pattern observed in sleep-deprived mammals. The cockroach's rest is not equivalent to mammalian sleep in neural architecture. Cockroaches don't have the brain structures that produce slow-wave and REM sleep in vertebrates, but behaviorally and functionally, the pattern is identical. Rest with reduced responsiveness, circadian cycling, rebound after deprivation. This matters for understanding sleep's evolutionary origins. If insects show a functional analog of sleep with the same behavioral characteristics and the same rebound dynamics, then sleep-like states evolved very early in animal evolution, long before the complex brain structures associated with vertebrate sleep existed. The cockroach's sleep isn't a curiosity. It's evidence that whatever sleep does, it's so important that evolution found it independently in lineages separated by 600 million years. An animal that people step on without thinking has been solving the same biological problem that keeps neuroscientists employed, and it solved it first. The little brown bat. The little brown bat sleeps approximately 20 hours per day, the most of any mammal studied. The reason appears to be metabolic. Bats have very high metabolic rates during flight, burning energy at rates that require extended recovery. The 20 hours of sleep is essentially the recovery time required after 4 hours of the most energetically expensive activity a mammal can perform. What makes the bat's sleep notable on this list is not the duration, but the environment. Bats sleep in roosts, caves, attics, tree hollows in proximity to hundreds or thousands of other individuals, all cycling through sleep simultaneously. The acoustic environment of a bat roost during a sleep period is not quiet. It is a constant, low-level noise of breathing, movement, and occasional vocalizations from individuals at different sleep stages. The bat brain has adapted to sleep through one of the noisier environments any mammal regularly occupies. The stimuli that would wake a human sound, movement, touch from nearby individuals do not disrupt bat sleep at the levels that occur naturally in a cave with several thousand others. Sleep is not just about the brain's internal state. It's about what the brain decides to filter out. The little brown bat has decided to filter out everything that happens in a cave with several thousand other bats, and it does this successfully every day for 20 hours. The decision is automatic. The result is an animal that sleeps more than any other mammal in conditions no other mammal would tolerate and wakes up ready to do the most energetically demanding thing a mammal can do. 12 animals. The dolphin sleeps with half its brain. The frigate bird sleeps in the air. The elephant sleeps 2 hours a night and has done so for 70 million years of evolutionary history. The mother dolphin doesn't sleep at all for a month and shows no sign of it. The sparrow stays awake for a week and tests as if it slept normally. The cockroach, which people assume has no inner life worth considering, has a sleep cycle with rebound dynamics that mirror mammalian sleep and had it first. Sleep research has been studying human sleep for decades and still doesn't have a complete explanation for why we need it. The animals on this list suggest the answer isn't one thing, that sleep is a family of processes independently arrived at by different lineages under different pressures that all accomplish something essential through very different mechanisms. What that something is remains one of biology's genuine open questions. The animals on this list are the evidence that the question is harder than it looks. Subscribe if you want more of this. I'll see you in the next one.